Happy Friday, everyone. We made it. Long week. So much going on this week. Oh, but anyways, I was I was listening to someone last night and they got me thinking about like conspiracies versus conspiracy theories. Like conspiracies are real. Conspiracy theories are just that, a theory. But I figure I'd start with the definition of a conspiracy, which is an agreement between two or more people to commit an unlawful act, or a lawful act by unlawful means. And then there's the conspiracy theory, is an explanation for an event, situation, or phenomenon that claims it is the result of a secret, often sinister plot orchestrated by a small group of powerful individuals, organizations, or governments, rather than the commonly accepted or official account. Um, there's a lot of conspiracies, which are things that started out as conspiracy theories that turned into legitimate conspiracies. And then there are conspiracy theories, which are just that. And I would say there's a grifter community out there that is focused on conspiracy theories and laundering them kind of as fact when there's not a whole lot of actual evidence. And if you tried legitimately explaining it to anybody, it just sounds like a conspiracy theory. I mean, I'm relatively immune to conspiracy theories. Um, I just kind of see through them, and I'll kind of get to some of the people who I think push those conspiracy theories the most. But conspiracies that started out as theories that turned out to be true, but also like if you just took 2 seconds to think about them and think about the facts that were being laid out, and even the facts that were available at the time, were legitimate conspiracies, like things that happened for real, that were two or more people getting together to uh, commit a crime or whatever. So the first one on my list was Anthony Fauci worked to hide the origin of COVID, which came from the Wuhan lab, which funding came through Peter Daszak. Like, those are real things. And that information was available at the time. And now, that information was available up front. And then you had the media that was pushing that it was just a conspiracy theory. Like, people were just making this stuff up with all of this information that was available. And then fast forward to this week when a colleague of Fauci's has been indicted, um, and they're essentially trying to cover up the origins of COVID. There's the one that people cite a lot. I think the left is like just doesn't have all the facts on this, but there is the FBI used informants to plan the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping. Yes, there were more informants in that than there were not. And this all came out in the court case. So essentially, the FBI was trying to manufacture or facilitate the manufacturing of by funding people to come up with this kidnapping plot against Gretchen Whitmer. I mean, what they did here is essentially the same thing that the Southern Poverty Law Center was doing, which is like there's not enough hate, which is also, by the way, a conspiracy. There wasn't enough actual racism, so they were giving money to KKK members and white supremacists to forward their message. They paid for them to get to Charlottesville. They paid for other people to get to Charlottesville. They supported and approved the messages that were going out on social media from these white supremacists. Like, this is ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous. But yes, the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping case was an actual conspiracy funded by the federal government, the FBI more specifically. The big one that kind of kicked off the Trump 2016 presidential cycle was the Russian collusion hoax, which was upfront, by the way, to remove the possibility or prevent Trump from winning the 2016 election. And then they tried to use it to get him removed from office. It was a conspiracy amongst many individuals in the CIA and the FBI, not always working together, interestingly enough, but separate groups of people um, running a conspiracy against the sitting president at the time, or the soon to be president, and then the sitting president. Um, this one was interesting because I don't think that people on the left want to acknowledge this. Is that, well, one, the Hunter Biden laptop story is real and there's a conspiracy to cover that up. We all know that now. But what came out of that was after Elon bought then Twitter, the Twitter files were released. And it confirmed that the US government was working with big tech to censor stories online, specifically, and everybody knows the Hunter Biden laptop story. Also, COVID information was being censored by the government. And this was all brought out by Barry Weiss and Schellenberger and some of the other people that were also involved in the release. I mean, those were actual things that happened that were real conspiracies, real conspiracies. But conspiracy theories, I know my first one is going to rankle a bit of feathers. Because I think there is some nuance to this one. But the mainstream push for this particular conspiracy theory was completely off, and had the facts have not proven that to be true. The 2020 election was stolen using foreign hackers and servers that were used to flip votes. Like, there is zero evidence of that. There is evidence of ballot harvesting, states changing voting rules, the governors, that is, and not the legislatures. So changing rules and doing things like that is not a conspiracy theory. But the conspiracy theory is that some foreign actors, Venezuela or wherever, were able to flip votes in the middle of the night. I think there's some questions, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist. The this next one is one that is still kind of running rampant. Trump got a lot of flack for, and I think his initial take, the way, and I can understand, I'll get into it, why he presented it the way that he did, is that Jeffrey Epstein, the Epstein files, that Jeffrey Epstein ran a global a global child trafficking ring, and that he blackmailed wealthy and powerful people to extort money out of them. There is zero evidence for this. There is an entire grifter community that wants to push that that there's all of these facts. And if you spend 5 minutes listening to these people try to connect the dots, it's like Charlie Day and Always Sunny. It's like, it is grasping at straws. Now, I will say, the mention of, I think it's grape soda and pizza in email exchanges, people are jumping to the conclusion, and I found myself wanting to do this as well. Like, what is that? And I was like, hear all these conspiracy theories, but it's a higher probability that they're just referring to drugs, and those are the drugs that they're referring to, than they are of underage children. To refer to drugs as pizza and grape soda or whatever is more likely than this global trafficking ring. And just if you spend 2 seconds thinking about an extortion ring that he was running, like, after he extorted like the second like wealthy person, right? Because all of these people kind of run in the same circles. Like, don't you think that it would get out that, hey, don't go to Epstein Island or don't go to Jeffrey Epstein's properties, wherever they may be, because he's got cameras everywhere and he's going to try to get you in the act of hooking up with underage. No, it makes no sense. What it would have leaked out at some point in time. Like, just think about this stuff. Like, think about it reasonably and rationally. Again, there is zero evidence. There is a whole conspiracy theory industrial complex that is wrapped up around Epstein. And while I say that Trump's take is correct, he says that it's a hoax. Yes, the way in which Democrats are trying to frame him as being some pedophile, sex trafficker, and whatever, zero evidence for that. And so, yes, it is a hoax in that sense. And weirdly enough, there's more evidence of Trump actually working with the FBI and law enforcement to go after Jeffrey Epstein than there is that he was partaking in any of the stuff that happened there. This one's more recent, but I mean, there's one that happened recently, but it's the Trump assassination attempts. There's a more definitely left-leaning conspiracy theory complex that's trying to push that the original ones were they were faked. This most recent one was faked so that he could get the ballroom built. Like, this stuff just sounds dumb. And for anybody that's shot a gun or a rifle, like I have, hitting a target at 100 yards is easy, relatively easy, I would say. But intentionally missing a target to then graze his ear so that he can bend down and then splash a blood packet on his ear. Meanwhile, people did actually, one person died, another person got shot. Like, if you spend 2 seconds thinking about this stuff, like, it's absolutely ridiculous. But again, he had to turn his head at the right time to then not have his entire head blown off, and it was all just staged and set up. There were some serious failures by the Secret Service on that day. But to say that any of those attempts were staged, I'd probably stay away from that one. The next one is that Tyler Robinson was not the shooter of Charlie Kirk. There is no other evidence that has been presented that there was a second shooter. So, in order for there to have been a second shooter, first of all, you'd have to have a gun go off simultaneously at the same time that Tyler Robinson was firing. Tyler Robinson would have to have intentionally missed to then have the other person, shoot Charlie Kirk in the neck. Again, conspiracy theory. And just, again, as someone who goes to the range and shoots, it is definitely more likely that Tyler Robinson was aiming for Charlie Kirk's head, and the bullet drop over the distance is why it hit his neck and not his head. I mean, I won't go too much more into that one. That's the videos that I saw on the day have scarred me for life. But the other one is, again, a more recent one. And I would say that this one kind of blurs the line a little bit. And this one is 13 plus US scientists and researchers tied to classified work for UFOs, UAPs, nuclear, aerospace, advanced materials, or defense have died suspiciously or gone missing in recent months. This one is interesting because to date, it is a conspiracy theory. I will say that many of them have the same kind of beginning story, which is they left their cell phone and their wallet at home, all of them. It's interesting. Again, I want to stay away from conspiracy theories that I'm thinking, but it's interesting to say the least, and I'm waiting for more information to come out on this one. I think right now it just looks like it's a coincidence that if people want to commit suicide, they just don't want to be found. They leave their cell phone and wallet at home. Although one of them had a Tesla, and to leave your wallet and cell phone at home, especially since so many Tesla owners use their cell phone to enter and drive their vehicle. Again, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole in that one. Then there's like loose conspiracy, the way things are presented. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's actually based in some truth. There is the famous one of Alex Jones saying that they have chemicals in our water that are turning frogs gay. Um, I believe the chemical that he was referring to is atrazine, which has been shown to turn male frogs into female. There are certain uh, certain animals or species that can happen, and it actually happens because of this particular chemical. So he presents it as they're turning gay, but it's really the chemical in the water. So it's loosely based, but the way he delivers it sounds like conspiracy theory. But on my list of conspiracy theorists, number one is Alex Jones, um, consistently pushing conspiracy theories. That is his bread and butter. Sometimes, maybe one out of 50, he hits on. Um, but the rest, he tries to work back into how he was correct. Um, the next one on the list is Kyle Kalinske, and third is Crystal Ball. Now there are a couple, but the two of them, Kyle Kalinski's show, Crystal Ball on Breaking Points. Most of what she says is conspiracy theories. Not a lot of what she says is actually based in fact. There are other people on the show. I'd say Emily Jasinski, um, significantly more right and less willing to entertain conspiracy theories. Sagar originally kind of started out more on the right. He's definitely shifting, and he's falling more into some specific conspiracy theories, which I'll get at the end, one in particular. There's Candace Owens, who's just pushing a plethora of conspiracy theories, whether it's about other right wing or right leaning personalities, or it's about Erica Kirk and the Charlie Kirk assassination. Um, this is absolutely ridiculous. Kim Iverson is another one. Now, it's interesting. Kim Iverson, and my next one is Jimmy Dore. Both of them, leading up to the 2020 election, were focusing more on the actual conspiracies that had turned out to be obviously real. And then after Trump got elected, they started to go down this rabbit hole, which I'll come back to. There's one in particular, which they seem to be actually two, that they just seem to be going down. But Kim Iverson is floating conspiracies around the Trump assassinations, around Charlie Kirk, around Iran, around this, that, and the other. There's Tucker Carlson, which is unfortunate because I used to really like his content. But something happened with Trump getting elected where he just completely has fallen off. I don't know whether it's jealousy. I don't know whether he thought that he was closer to the president than he is or was, and the fact that Trump isn't listening to the things that he's saying makes him angry, and so now he wants to. I don't know, um, not in his head, but conspiracy theorist. The other one is Mehdi Hassan. There's a lot. I would say there are a few on the right. There are a lot on the left. Mehdi Hassan pushes a lot of conspiracy theories. His tend to get wrapped up in Israel and some others. But honorable mention, there are some comedians that front their opinions and conspiracies as fact and in a joking manner. And in some cases, people believe what they're saying to be true. Going down the list, J.P. Sears has gone down the rabbit hole of Israel. Um, Andrew Schultz. Um, it was interesting prior to the election. He was definitely more open to opposing ideas. Now he's just kind of fallen back into the way he was prior to the 2020, or I would say probably prior to like COVID. There's John Oliver, Tim Dillon, Dave Smith. Um, John Oliver is pernicious in a way that I don't think that most people get, because the way that he delivers his content is as fact, um, but it's opinion and it's conspiracy theories. It's twisting the truth to conform to his ideology. And there's a lot of people that watch his show that take what he says seriously. Um, and it's kind of disheartening in a way because those shows are so successful to more left-leaning folks, and they take it as gospel. But all of these people fall back on, oh, I'm just a comedian. I'm just making jokes over here. I'm just your average comedian. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I mean, Joe Rogan entertains conspiracies. He has on conspiracy theorists, but I don't have him on this list because he questions those who have conspiracies and furthers the conversation. Like that's more of his job than it is to actively go on and be solo and push conspiracy theories um, to an audience versus having a guest on who's then pushing conspiracy theories and he's asking questions to kind of figure out if they're BS or not. Now, there are people that I would say up until October 7th, when Hamas went in and brutalized a bunch of Israeli citizens and settlers, um, they were spot on most of the time. And I'm going to list three people that fall in this category: Robert Barnes, Glenn Greenwald, and Ryan Grimm. Now, to Glenn and Ryan, I still watch some of their content, but as soon as they bring up Israel, I turn it off. Literally turn it off. Um, it makes the arguments make no sense. Everything is Israel. And you can see it in their content and the way it skews kind of the broader views on whether it's foreign policy or domestic issues. Um, Everything is Israel. Super annoying. Robert Barnes has done this as well. He's gone super. Everything is Israel. He's also gone in on like the Epstein files. Even though he technically that was a little while ago. Then there was Israel stuff, and he's kind of gone in on that. And then all of these people are saying that, as well as many others, are saying the U.S. is losing, and then they're coming up with all these conspiracy theories as to why the U.S. is presenting things the way they are. The U.S. has a blockade on Iran. Like, we can all see it. We can also see that Iran's economy is tanking. Iran wants to make a deal, but they don't want to give up uranium. At some point, it's going to happen, whether it's by force or it comes through a negotiation. That uranium is not staying within Iran. Problem solved. But at any rate, I kind of just there's so many conspiracy theorists that are out there pushing conspiracy theories, it's kind of hard to see where the actual like real conspiracies are, because there is this entire kind of grift industrial complex which is like funding these conspiracies. Um, Maybe one day I'll be able to dive into, maybe where some of these folks are actually getting money to push the talking points or the theories that they are, or why they have such radical change overnight, like say a Tucker Carlson. Um, but yeah, at any rate, happy Friday, everyone. Have a great weekend. Um, Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, um, and keep believing that the best for America is still ahead. Peace out.